Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show, where you'll find health and fitness inspiration, motivation, and information shared in 15-minute episodes. Tune in while getting a move on to make leading and enjoying the benefits of a healthy lifestyle almost too easy. It's the Fit 15. And now your host, Catherine Basu.
Welcome to the Fit 15 podcast show. I'm your host, Catherine Basu. And for once, I have an episode that is not focused on running or runners. I hope those of you who have been not as fond of the running episodes are excited. I will mention, though, that I'm still on a not-so-secret mission to get all of you to become runners. So, spoiler alert, there will be some running-focused episodes coming your way again. But I hope that in time you will grow, not annoyed by them if you are, and start to maybe try out running for yourself or revisit it again if it's been a while since you've taken your running shoes out, and get to experience the magic that is running for yourself. All right, so what are we talking about today if not running? My guest today is Jenn. She is a speaker, author, world traveler, adventure connoisseur, holistic health advocate, creator of the Normal Eaters Club, and founder of JennHand.com, a full-service boutique that offers coaching and an online program that enables women to transform their relationship with food, fall in love with their bodies, and, well, become one of those normal eaters. Jenn recently published her book, How to Be a Normal Eater, Finally Make Peace with Food and Live a Life Free from Dieting. So I have some tips that she shares from that with you in the episode as well. So welcome to the podcast, Jenn. I'm so excited to have you as my guest today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So the most exciting thing that we definitely have to talk about is that you have your book coming out. But before the book, there is the story that brought you to the book and the work that you do. So could you talk to us about your personal story of how you've gone through some struggles with food and decided to have that be something you focus on helping other people go through?
Yeah, so I really battled food and my weight and my body for many, many years. And it began probably in high school when I, on a whim, innocently decided I wanted to take diet pills and lose weight for the prom. And that was the catalyst really for a severe diet. And then I couldn't stay on that. So I swung to the other extreme and started binging. And then from there, kept trying to recreate the quote unquote success I had with the weight loss. And it just spiraled me into this space of diet binge for many, many years. And really, this book was birthed from my own struggles, my own stories, and my own experiences with healing and working through all that stuff and coming to a place where I now feel normal, but didn't feel normal eating wise and body wise and weight wise for many, many years. And I think it's such a common struggle because dieting is so the norm. And when we're trying not to diet or we're trying to just find our balance, it's like, what do we do? How do we get there? And so it was my intention to sort of recreate a step-by-step path that people could follow, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, to get to the root of their issues and find that lasting change.
I love that. I love that it's based on your personal experiences versus, just something that sounds good, right?
Yeah, so actually it was funny because I wrote the book and then I had a writing coach and she read it and she said, this could be any book out there written by anyone. She's like, you need to add your stories. People learn through stories. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to share my stories. They're too embarrassing. Because it's
right.
It's like your own. It's filled with shame sometimes, embarrassment and secret eating. Like all those things bring up so much emotion. And so,
yeah.
But I really now I think it's so much more impactful and powerful with the stories because people learn through stories and it's like, oh, okay, that's how someone else implemented this thing that people talk about, or that's how someone practiced that thing.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, it's hard to share those stories, but more often than not, we're not the only ones like we might think that have had that embarrassing story happen to us, right? So help the other people out that are also feeling bad about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So what are some of the things that started getting you out of that binge and dieting cycle to finally have a more normal relationship with food?
For me, it was a huge component was this idea of balance. And I know that sounds really cliche, like, oh, find your balance. But for so long, I spent months either in like trying to restrict or eat super clean or eat super healthy and just watch my calories, and whatever restriction at that time in my life was, I spent time there. Or it was like, the screw it, I'm going to have whatever I want, that rebellion phase. So it was taking those two extremes and trying to find a middle ground where I used the intellectual knowledge of nutrition and what's healthy and nutritious for my body, but trying to balance that with cravings and emotions and what I really wanted and listening to my body. So starting to kind of bring myself in from the two extremes to not have one or the other dominate my life. And I mean, it did take time to find that balance, but I think people often get confused when they hear of intuitive eating or normal eating. It's like, oh, just eat what you want and listen to your body. And I think that's true. That's a component of it, but it's balancing it with that knowledge we have of, vegetables and whole grains and fruits are also really nutritious. So for me, that focus on not one or the other, but like that middle ground of how can I incorporate my head of like all the stuff I knew, but also what my body wanted. And sometimes I just wanted pizza or pancakes or a piece of cake, that kind of thing. So yeah.
Got it. And I totally agree. It can be hard to internalize the lessons of intuitive eating because, well, it sounds really good to be able to eat what you feel like your body is telling you need. It can be hard to feel comfortable taking that leap and trusting the principles of intuitive eating. So it sounds like, though, Jen, you were able to navigate that by trying to find a balance and having that as your focus. But I wonder if that's what you have clients try to work on, and maybe what some of the mental tools might be that you use to put that into action in your daily life when you have a craving and are trying to make some of these choices.
Yeah, so I think, and of course it depends on the situation, but one thing I try and do is keep my blood sugar even. So in layman's terms, just eating regularly and often. So like if we eat at 9 a.m. and then don't eat till 4, I mean, our blood sugar is just gonna be so low that we're gonna want anything that gives us that quick energy, which is usually carbs or sugar. So sort of like the physical piece is I make sure I'm eating regularly and often so I don't get to that point where like I want a brownie and I eat it immediately because I'm so hungry.
Hi friends, it's Catherine, and that sound was your halfway point reminder. If you're joining us and going for an out and back walk but only have 15 minutes, you will want to turn around now. All right, back to Jen.
So in terms of like the mental and emotional strategies, I kind of sit with it a little bit and like, okay, am I eating for an emotional reason? Like, do I want the brownie because I'm so stressed out and overwhelmed? And I would try and use another tool or coping mechanism for that. If it's something mental, I'll just sort of like sit with it. I will honor it and eat it, but I want to make sure I'm able to be mindful and able to enjoy it. So like if I'm in that space where I'll feel super guilty or I'm eating it really fast or like I'm like, oh, quick, that kind of just scarf it down, then I will try not to, because I want to really like give myself the pleasure of eating the brownie and not like scarf it down in 2 seconds and be like, oh, I didn't even taste it. So I really make an effort to kind of sit with it and look at it. Is it something, a physical response because I'm so hungry, or is it an emotional response? And then like, so an example, the other day it was my birthday a couple weeks ago, and I had brownies, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 days in a row. And then like at the weekend, my husband made brownies for my birthday. So the brownies in the beginning was a separate thing. And I was like, oh, I've already had brownies like 2 or 3 days this week, and I want another brownie. And so I kind of had that battle in my head of like, I shouldn't have it. I already had brownies. So I kind of sat with it, and I realized it was like, okay, I'm having that mental battle again. And I know if I keep trying to tell myself I don't want it, I know I'm going to end up eating it anyway. Because I don't want it. I shouldn't have it. You don't eat that. You kind of just end up eating it anyway. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'm going to sit down and let myself have a small brownie and enjoy it and be mindful with it and tell myself I'm allowed to have it. And it kind of like made those voices go away, because I wanted the brownie. And even though my mind said like, oh, you shouldn't have that, I was like, no, I'm in that battle. And usually when I'm in the battle, it's like, let yourself have it. Otherwise I'll be thinking about it all day.
Right.
And end up eating it anyway. So
yeah, no, that's a good point. So now I wanted Jen to help us think about the healthier, or I guess I should say more nutritious foods, I know for me, if I have a salad prepared and I'm hungry at lunch, I'm excited to open the fridge and see that and eat that. And I think that's probably mostly because I know from experience that it's going to be a lot more satisfying and sustaining than maybe the handful of pretzels I would grab if I didn't have something prepared. So I know pretzels aren't the worst option in general, but they're not going to really sustain my energy and help me through the day. So I wonder if you could help walk us through that. How do you navigate trying to eat healthier or more nutritious foods and not having the language that is used around those foods causing a problem? So maybe focusing on the mental standpoint for us as we're trying to eat more nutritious foods. I keep saying healthier, but helping us with that. Do you have any tips there?
Yeah, and I love that you use the word nutritious, because that's one of the things I've done over the years is try and replace like, oh, that's healthy with that's nutritious or that's nourishing or that's, well, those are the only two words really that I use, or full of nutrients, like something that isn't, that's healthy. Because I think a lot of times it's like that's healthy or unhealthy, and it creates this I should have that instead of that. So just replacing words has helped me refocus it in a different way. Like, oh, my body needs nutrients. My body needs things that are filled with vitamins and minerals, and usually it's food from the earth. I also, it's funny that you're asking me this, because I just filmed this video series for my book, like a book bonus that is like because so many people ask me like, oh, how do you choose what to eat? And like articulating how to do that is actually really hard, because it's come automatic for me, but it used to be, step, 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 step. But one thing that's also helped me is looking at my foods. Okay, like it's Saturday night and I haven't eaten one vegetable yet. And I'm like, oh man, I really want to add some vegetables to this meal, or have a salad with dinner. Or if I'm having chicken or pizza or soup or whatever, like adding something that's usually vegetables. So I'm conscious of how I've been eating. Like even if I've had a lot of protein in a day, I'm like, oh, maybe I'll eat a little bit lighter or have more fruit or more complex carbohydrates versus more protein. So I'm aware of if I'm having maybe too much of something, and I'll try and balance that out with adding fruit or vegetables or whole grains or sweet potato or something that is full of nutrients that kind of adds that. So again, it's not always like, oh, I really want this vegetable, but I add it to kind of, I don't like force it down my throat, but like, I'm adding it, and that's kind of where that like intellectual part comes in. We use our minds to say, not I should have this vegetable, but like, okay, that's going to be really helpful for my body to just have some fuel and have some nutrients.
So it sounds like the tip here with the more nutritious foods is building an awareness of what you're eating, and then tapping into those past feelings of how you felt when you were eating more nutritious foods, rather than necessarily writing down every single thing that you've eaten and panicking if you've already had a lot of protein and you feel like having a little bit more protein in a given day.
Yeah, exactly. And I love what you said about planning too, because I think for me that's huge. And I know some people can't stand meal planning and it feels really diety, but I've tried to approach it in a way that it's like, yeah, I don't love meal planning, but it always helps me pick choices that are easy, that serve me, that are more nourishing. Because if you get home from a long day, let's say you're a teacher or you're out all day working, or you have the kids running around all day, like you come home and there's nothing planned. You're just likely to pick something quick, something easy, the chips, the pretzels. And before you know it, you're like, man, how did I just eat like a half a bag of cookies or whatever?
Right.
Because planning is just, and it doesn't have to be rigid, but it can be so helpful in having something as your base to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to have these turkey burgers and a side salad. And that's what the general plan was. Maybe I don't feel like it. I might add something else, or maybe have something else, but it's like you have something in your mind that you're not just like, oh, I have nothing. And then you reach for whatever's quick.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. So I guess too, like people, maybe this is a good time that we're releasing this interview, because we just had January where people maybe set some New Year's resolutions around, what they were going to be eating. And maybe they've gone on diets to try to reach a certain goal. But maybe they have not seen the result they hope with that diet, or they're struggling to stay on that diet. So, but they might be afraid to let that dieting culture go, or having a diet to hold on to go. So if they're in between diets now, could you give them some advice to not go on that diet and try some other tools, just from your experience?
Yeah, I think, so one thing with dieting that I've learned is that, well, first of all, it's such a sneaky, tempting solution. You're like, oh, just like real quick, I'll go on this diet and get back to my normal weight or lose a couple pounds, and then I'll work on all this other stuff. But for me, I've really learned that dieting always sends me into another extreme. So when you go on something, there has to be an end. And usually when you get to the end, you're like, well, now what do I do? And usually you kind of go back to what you were doing before. And so, and that's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of like this idea that you find that middle ground. Like, so maybe you don't start the diet. Maybe you focus on adding vegetables to your meals every time you eat, or adding fruit and to, as a dessert instead of something sweet that's processed. Like having something else in your mind that is a habit you want to adopt instead of like the going on something. And I've tried to like use it, like rephrase it in my head as like, let's add something in, add more water, add more sleep, add more vegetables, add more movement, add something in instead of that diet mindset that's like, let's take away all the carbs and all the sugar. And you're just like, no.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I realized we haven't even mentioned the title of your book yet.
Yes. So it's How to Be a Normal Eater, Finally Make Peace with Food and Live a Life Free from Dieting.
I love it. And I love that you said you're the founder of the Normal Eaters Club too. So I like this idea of, I like that idea of the Normal Eaters Club, because I feel like that dieting culture is so strong, and a Normal Eaters Club is counter to that. But you have your people that are not going to be like the food police of what you're eating. Exactly. When you go out,
we're all going to be normal together, or find our normal together. Yeah.
Awesome. So now, Jen, to encourage people to go check out the book, could you share more about what's inside and how it will help readers?
So my intention with writing the book was to have sort of a mini chapters that they could focus on tangible, actionable steps that start with the physical, like start with your body, rebalancing yourself physically, and then moving into mental, emotional, and spiritual. But really the end aim is to get people to be able to hear what their body is saying, what their wisdom is saying, what works for them really, because it's, it's not, okay, eat this many grams of carbs or don't have these sugars. It's really to find what works for each person, and everyone's different. So above all else, it's like a proven quote unquote plan, but within that plan, it's like, no, I want you to learn to listen to you. And because when you learn to listen to yourself and hear your own sense of what works for getting you into balance, it's like, then you don't have to rely on something else, a book, a program, a this, a that to help you get there. So that's really the end goal, is to empower people to listen to themselves and unlearn all the stuff that we've piled on around diets and healthy foods and food police things and all that stuff.
Yep. And I love that. I think that's great for people to hear that the book is not a prescriptive thing. Some people get nervous about that, but that's probably because they've been on lots of diets.
It's scary. It's like, well, what am I going to do if I'm not on a diet? And that was a fear for me. Like, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to do with my time? What am I going to think about if I'm not on a diet? But it's like I learned, now that I'm not in that space, it's like, oh, I think about all these other things that are cool in life.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that the book will help people take back some of that time that they've spent focusing on what they're eating and do something better with it, or something more productive with it, perhaps. Okay, so you have the book that we want people to check out, but you also have some other resources on your website that people could use to kind of get started. Could you share a little bit more about the free guide that you have on your website, Jen?
Yeah, so it's called The Must-Have Guide to Ending the Diet Cycle. So it's on my website, jennhand.com. And yeah, it's a quick read, and it has 5 steps to kind of walk you through, okay, how do I start getting out of the diet cycle? And how do I take that one step towards finding my own balance?
Yeah, very cool. Well, awesome. Congrats again on the book.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And then I know I'll put this in the show notes, but where is the best place for people to connect with you and kind of, follow you? Because maybe you'll do some speaking events near them, or they can come check you out.
My website, jennhand.com, is the best way to reach me. I'm always on Facebook as well. and you'll post the link. But I just started Instagram, which is I'm having a hard time with. But at some point, I'll learn how to use Instagram. I feel like a non-technical person, but
oh my goodness, I fake that I know what I'm doing on all of them. Awesome, Jenn. Well, thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Fit 15. For show notes and more, visit fitarmadillo.com/podcast. See you next time.